that Republicans and the Trump administration like to flap about working people. If you actually listen carefully, every once in a while they let the mask slip about what they actually think about us. You know, just last week, President Trump's lawyer, her name is Alina Habba, she went on television, and when she actually had to be faced with explaining her job, and when she actually had to be faced with doing her job, this is what she had to say. Quote, what intellectual thought? When she was asked about me, quote, what intellectual thought? You were in a bar. You were in a bar, AOC, and not to have a drink, but to serve one. And I want you all to understand, I don't care what this woman says about me, but I get it. But I want you to understand that she isn't just talking about me here. She's talking about you. She's talking about all of us. Because the entire job of the president's lawyer is to speak for him. Trump hired her to speak for him. So imagine what it means for our country that the president's own lawyer cannot even conceive of a working class person being intelligent simply because of the job that they have. This woman could not even recognize the American dream if it was fed to her on a silver spoon. But understand that this kind of disdain for working people by the most powerful people in this country doesn't just come from not being raised right. It's a shorthand for Elon Musk and Donald Trump's entire political agenda and a certain ugly kind of politics, lying to and screwing over working people so that they can steal from our health care and Social Security and veterans care to pay for tax cuts for the wealthiest and bailouts for their crypto billionaire friends. There's a word for this: corruption.
That's AOC, who's joining Bernie Sanders on his nationwide Stop Oligarchy tour. And she very rightly points out the utter contempt that the Trump administration has for the very people it claimed to want to help back during the campaign, back when they actually needed something from their voters, only for them now to decide that their priority wouldn't be lowering high costs for housing or rent or groceries or eggs, but the polar opposite. It would be engaging in a voluntary and destructive trade war that would send costs soaring. It would be taking an axe to Medicaid and screwing over the more than 70 million Americans who rely on it. It would be taking an axe to food stamps and the more than 40 million Americans who rely on it. It would be chipping away at Social Security by firing the employees who actually make that department run. It would be firing thousands of veterans who serve other veterans at the VA. It would be slashing education funding and healthcare and climate programs and national park funding and cancer research and practically everything that doesn't directly benefit Trump or Elon Musk's own personal bottom line. The reality is that if Alina Habba or Trump or Musk truly cared about regular Americans, they would use some of their political capital to actually show it. And let's be clear, this is a recurring theme with Donald Trump. Literally the last time he had unified control of government, Republicans swept into office amid promises of an infrastructure law that never materialized, a manufacturing renaissance that never materialized, a jobs boom that never materialized, a middle-class tax cut that never materialized. But you know what did happen? You know what they did have time for? A tax cut for millionaires and billionaires. That is what their priority is. And if it was their priority back then you shouldn't be surprised that yet again it's a priority right now, when Trump's administration is composed of a record number of billionaires. Elon Musk, Linda McMahon, Howard Lutnick, Charles Kushner, Stephen Wyckoff, Scott Besson, David Sachs, Kelly Loeffler, Doug Burgum, Dr. Oz, and so many more. So if the outright contempt they show for working class people doesn't already make it clear enough, the composition of this cabinet should really drive the message home. In fact, the very things that Trump and Republicans pretended they would do are the things that Democrats actually do when they're in office, and yet Republicans have the audacity to claim that it's the Democrats who are radical, who are extreme. Take a listen to this and let me know which part of this is radical.
So let me share with you exactly what I mean. Because when they like to call us radical, and what they like to call me as radical, I believe is common sense. believe that when a person gets sick, they shouldn't go bankrupt in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Common sense. I believe that a minimum wage should cover the minimum cost to live. Common sense. And by the way, we should see that not paying a living wage is also a form of corporate welfare and looting, because big companies like Walmart and Amazon often rely on the food stamp program and public coffers to cover the wages that they won't pay. I believe that homes are not slot machines for investors and Wall Street to extort working families out of every last dollar that they have. A home is sacred, and when your landlord jacks up your rent by half overnight, or housing prices skyrocket because Wall Street treats our housing market like a casino, your government should fight for your ability to keep an affordable roof over your head. And finally, I believe our elected officials should take on abuses of corporate greed everywhere they find it. We must get big money out of politics and make clear that our country is not for sale. And that is why I don't and never will take money from lobbyists and corporations.
Funny how Republicans adopt that populist rhetoric during the campaign cycle and then turn around and call Democrats radicals for saying the same stuff, albeit in good faith, the rest of the time. If ever you needed to disabuse yourself of the notion that Republicans are working for regular people, watching Trump and Musk in office right now makes that abundantly clear. And just one point of personal privilege here. I make it a point not to really talk about myself in these videos because these videos are not about me, they're about all of us. But when I was in high school, there was a social studies teacher who I loved. I won't say his name, but he reminds me now a lot of Bernie Sanders. He had a Ralph Nader bumper sticker on his car. He was a real anti-establishment type. He was the kind of teacher who'd been there forever, right? He was synonymous with the school itself. In my senior year, I signed up for some class just because he was the teacher. But that same year, he was diagnosed with late-stage cancer, I believe either liver or pancreatic cancer, but something you just don't come back from. And so I remember him coming to exactly one class that year. And clear as day, I remember him telling us to take out our notebooks and write the word oligarchy. And that was the only word we wrote that day. It was the only word we would write from him in that entire class. He would basically go on that day to do a 40-minute lecture about a problem that all the way back in 2007 was already becoming apparent. And he would only live a few more months after that. And it was crushing, not only because he was an institution in that school, but because he was a great teacher who had, a huge impact on my life. And it's a weird full circle moment for me because, that teacher was in large part why I became interested in politics. And the very last thing that he taught my class was about one of the preeminent issues of our time. It's an issue that I'm going to do everything in my power to fight right now. The dangers of oligarchy were obviously important enough for him to spend his only day in class warning us about it. So, I'll do my part, as small as it may be, to make sure that as many people as possible know exactly why. Before you go, first, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we're now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they're willing to cater to this White House. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a great way for me to be able to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's completely free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support my work. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.